Welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're tuning in. Today, we are breaking down a massive regulatory shift that is about to impact thousands of businesses. And we're using a fantastic, highly detailed guide sourced directly from VCA Consulting. We're looking closely at the employment equity submission for the 2026 cycle. Look, whether you're an HR pro, a business owner, or just someone fascinated by corporate compliance, this is absolutely crucial information. The rules of the game have fundamentally changed this year. Relying on last year's playbook? Well, that could land your business in some incredibly hot water. We've got a ton of ground to cover to make sure you're fully prepared, so let's jump right in. Okay, look at this number, 50. I really want you to burn this number into your memory right now. Honestly, if there's only one thing you take away from this entire explainer today, it needs to be this single digit. Under the amended Employment Equity Act, this number changes absolutely everything for the 2026 reporting cycle. If your business employs 50 people or more, you are officially caught in the regulatory net. You are a designated employer, and your submission is compulsory, period. There's literally no gray area here anymore.
To navigate this whole thing safely, here is our roadmap. First, we'll unpack that new headcount rule, then we'll lock in the critical deadlines, look at the staggering cost of failure, and finally walk through the exact forms and steps you need to take to stay totally compliant.
All right, let's start with Section 1, the new headcount rule. We really need to dismantle some dangerous, outdated assumptions right out of the gate. So let's look at the core shift here. In the past, smaller companies could often kind of fly under the radar if they didn't meet certain annual turnover thresholds, even if they had a pretty decent-sized team. Well, you can completely forget about that. That old rule is gone. The Department of Employment and Labor has removed the turnover threshold entirely. Today, a designated employer is defined purely by headcount. It doesn't matter what sector you trade in, and it doesn't matter if your turnover is massive or minimal. You hit that 50-employee mark, you must report. It's a strict, undeniable line in the sand. Now here is a really sneaky hidden trap. VCA Consulting noted a recurring pattern with this, especially over on the East Rand, from Boxburg to Kempton Park. Say a company restructures, right? They downsize or naturally lose some staff, bringing their headcount to, let's say, 48. They usually assume they've just quietly dropped out of scope and don't need to worry about it. That is a massive mistake. You don't just automatically drop out of the system. The department system is automated. If you were on their list last year, it fully expects a report from you this year unless you legally tell it otherwise. If you fall below 50, you must proactively and formally notify the department by submitting an EEA 14 deregistration form. And get this, you have to do it early, by August 31st, 2026, before the submission window even opens. If you just stay silent, the system expects a report, and you are going to be penalized for missing it. Which brings us perfectly to Section 2, critical deadlines to know. The clock on this reporting cycle is incredibly unforgiving. Look at how tight these windows actually are, especially when you factor in the December holidays. Like we just talked about, August 31st is your deregistration deadline. The very next day, September 1st, the submission portals open up. Now, if you're one of the few still doing a physical, paper-based manual submission, your door closes just 1 month later on October 1st. But for the vast majority of you using the EE online portal, your absolute final cutoff is midnight on January 15th, 2027. And listen closely. The department has been super explicit about this. There will be absolutely zero extensions entertained this cycle. Midnight means midnight. A minute late is treated exactly the same as not submitting at all. You might be wondering, why is the pressure so exceptionally high this year? It's because this isn't just a simple paperwork exercise anymore. The department is running its very first serious compliance checks against the 5-year sector-specific numerical targets. VCA Consulting highlights that employers near Rand Airport in Germiston, where there's this huge concentration of manufacturing and logistics firms, they're really going to feel this. A lot of these businesses experience seasonal staffing swings, so you might hire seasonal workers for a few months, push your headcount over 50 without HR even really noticing, and suddenly, bam, you are a first-time submitter caught right under the microscope of these new gazetted sector targets. It happens way faster than you think. So what happens if things go south? Let's move to Section 3, the high cost of failure. The stakes are definitely no joke. Let this number just sink in for a second. Ouch, right? If you miss your submission, or even if your submission is just simply inaccurate, first-time offenders are staring down a baseline fine of 1.5 million rand. Or 2% of your annual turnover, whichever figure is greater. That whichever is greater clause, that's the real danger zone, especially for high turnover, low margin businesses. And if you're a repeat offender, that fine can violently escalate up to 10% of your total annual turnover.
It is a terrifying figure, and it's strictly designed to ensure absolute, non-negotiable compliance from every single designated employer.
But wait, the financial penalty is honestly just the tip of the iceberg. The cascading business failures can be catastrophic. Missing your e-submission triggers a zero-tolerance policy that basically paralyzes your operations. We're talking 0 points for the management control element on your next BBB verification, which totally drags down your entire scorecard. It also triggers an automatic denial of a Section 53 compliance certificate. And without that certificate, you face a complete, immediate ban on bidding for government contracts or trading with any organs of state. VCA Consulting has literally seen businesses only discover this consequence when they were right in the middle of trying to bid on a lucrative tender, only to be blocked completely and lose the contract on a technicality. No way you want that to happen to you.
Okay, let's lower our collective blood pressure and talk about the rescue plan. Section 4. Mastering the required forms. Your submission is not just one big document. It's actually 2 distinct forms that have to be completed together perfectly. First up is the EEA2. Think of this as your WHO. It captures your workforce profile, detailing your staff demographics, your occupational levels, and your internal numerical targets. The second one is the EEA4. This is your income differential statement. Think of this as your what. It closely scrutinizes remuneration gaps across race and gender groups to strictly test the principle of equal pay for equal work. You absolutely must understand both the who and the what. And here is the absolute cardinal rule that trips up so many well-prepared companies. These 2 forms, they are married. They cannot be separated under any circumstances. If you submit them separately, or if even a single headcount figure doesn't match perfectly between the EEA2 and the EEA4, the system triggers an automatic rejection of your entire submission. They must be completely reconciled, literally line by line, before you even think about uploading them to the portal. So, how do we actually get this right without panicking? Let's finish strong with Section 5, the step-by-step submission guide, designed by the experts at VCA Consulting. Following this exact sequence is going to save you from those fatal mismatch errors. Step 1, log in and rotate your password. The system actually enforces a mandatory password change every single year. Step 2, check Section A. The system will pre-populate your company details, but seriously, don't just assume they're right. Verify them manually to dodge any silly technical errors. Moving on to Step 3, capture your EEA2 data first. Why? Because those workforce figures automatically pull into Section C of your EEA4 income sheet. That drastically reduces duplicate capture errors and makes sure your numbers sync up perfectly. Step 4, ensure your numbers align with those new gazetted sector targets we talked about earlier. Finally, Step 5, click Submit and instantly download your digital acknowledgement letter. That's your golden proof of compliance. Actually, let's pause on a really critical detail for Steps 4 and 5. Your internal 5-year employment equity plan, the one running from September 2025 to August 2030, must actively track against the gazetted targets for your specific industry. You can't just make up your own arbitrary goals anymore. The department is measuring you against their very specific benchmarks. Oh, and one more thing. Before you hit that submit button online, you must print the completed documents. The report requires a physical ink-on-paper sign-off from your chief executive officer or accounting officer. It simply isn't valid without that executive signature on file. Do not skip this step. Which brings us to the final and definitely the most important question. Is your business actually ready for January 15th? With those old turnover thresholds totally gone and headcount being the sole trigger, you need to evaluate your staff numbers immediately. Are you hovering right around 50? Did a seasonal hiring swing push you over? Or did you maybe drop to 48 and need to scramble to deregister by August 31st? Please, do not wait until January to find out. The data preparation, the reconciliation between the EA2 and EA4, getting that CEO sign-off, all of this takes significant time. The clock is ticking right now, the fines are massive, and remember, there are 0 extensions. Take this information, assess your headcount today, and start compiling. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Here's to a seamless, perfectly compliant submission season.